Hello, dear friends. Welcome to my definitive guide on how to stop raging and being a baby on the internet. I'm presenting to you today a PowerPoint presentation entitled How to Apply the Mental Game to Melee. So what are we dealing with? Tilt. So what is tilt? We're going to start off with the ABCs here. I think a good summary is that it's an emotional response from repeated exertion at an activity with undesired results. This could be anything from, getting wobbled for 4 stocks and then believing truly that you should have won the game. It applies to other sports. It applies to almost anything that people are applying themselves competitively at. How does it manifest? In way too many ways. I did not want to list them all, but I think I figured it pretty apt to start listing the ones that apply most to melee players. Decreased performance at the task obviously being hitting Mario and making sure he doesn't hit you with his coin move. Much more impulsive behavior, generally with an emotional response. You tend to just act without thinking. Your frontal lobe kind of falls asleep, your amygdala goes crazy. That's like the nitty gritty of it, but you just start acting. There's sort of a dissonance between how you probably want to act as an adult and how you actually end up acting. You might, slam your cup on the desk. You might punch at some drywall. Physiological response. Being tilted and being angry at Mario is going to increase your blood pressure. Your heart rate's going to be going nuts. You may even start trembling, It's a very physical response. Some people get it more severe than others. Anxiety and other, mental factors play into it. But ultimately, it is just really, really bad for your health to continually suscept yourself to this. Obviously, taking into consideration that, competitions are going to be stressful. There's going to be, it's not something very common. People don't generally sort of subject themselves to this. A lot of people... It's very, very common to have quite an avoidant mentality of, I might not be good at this, so I'm not going to do it. And combined with, stage pressure, just being in front of people, being expected to perform, maybe being on a PR and expecting results. It's a pretty terrifying feeling. And I know for me personally, I'd been nervous in the past, but I've never had it to where my body is quite literally screaming at me, you're nervous and you're terrified right now. And of course, the sort of result that we are probably all familiar with at this point, from one end or another, is outbursts, controller spiking. Just kind of yelling at your opponent, maybe just saying some pretty gremlin-esque words in the post netplay chat. So, what are our sources of tilt? Within the context of Melee, there's a lot of them. Losing to an opponent you deem inferior, or someone that you normally win against. Again, you might be on a local PR. There might be an up-and-comer that you firmly believe is, a step or two below you on the ladder. And they might take a game. They might take 2 games. They might take a couple extra stocks, and then they might message you later saying, I think I played really well. I'm starting to catch up. Watch out. Playing under your standards. Pretty common one that I think almost everyone has fallen victim to. Not hitting your text, not hitting the stuff that you practiced. Playing against a character that seemingly has an option and answer to all your options. Losing to a playstyle that seems simple to execute. This is primarily looking at wobbling and in some ways looking at, what sometimes are called shortcut tactics like up throw rest. I used to do it with Falco's combo game. I used to firmly believe that you could just go up, down, and they're dead. Someone playing a character that you deem disrespectful. This is one of the common ones in the Slippi era, which is pretty funny and sort of by concept, to think that there's these 27-year-olds that are absolutely seething at the fact that there's a pink ball about to fight them. Taunting. This is a common one. It's used a lot in, every level of Melee to gain a mental advantage. Some opponents will taunt if they know that their opponent is sort of susceptible to crumbling, Link drinking whatever it is that he's drinking out of that jar. And I've put literally existing on net play and having a stock deficit because, again, this is something that is just common across all skill levels. People don't like losing. Losing sucks. Losing makes you vulnerable. Losing forces you to look at yourself. And some people choose to, some people don't. and we're going to touch on that in a little bit. Why does tilt happen? I don't know, but it sucks. Physical factors. This is a pretty important one because it's something that you can not really recognize, and it's something that you can choose to believe in or choose to not in some cases. But ultimately your body, it needs fuel. You need to treat your body right. As, video game aficionados, we aren't notorious for having great diets, great sleep schedules. There's obviously mental health is a huge factor. Being in the COVID era, I think it's been more highlighted than ever that in most countries, in most cases, mental health framework, the medical side, and just from a societal aspect of how mental health is seen, it's not great. And so it's really easy to neglect it, and it's especially easy to neglect it when Melee, for a lot of people, is a coping mechanism. It's a way to escape from the stresses that they feel from outside. Hydration is very important. You might not think it would, apply to how disgusting your Falco is, but it plays a pretty huge part in how you're going to perform under stress. Ego depletion. This is a pretty important psychological concept. Gerald at Corey Gaming has a really, really good video that covers this. I'll link to it in the description. Basically, it's as he worded it, it's a stamina gauge, or like a well. It's a resource of stamina, and it's something that runs dry. When you apply yourself, and when you are sort of focusing on a task, be it work, be it school, or obviously putting your effort into Melee, you're taking things out of this well. You're getting buckets, and you're taking water from the well, and it does run dry. If you've spent 8 hours playing, you're probably not going to be, in most cases, you're probably not going to be playing as well as you might be sort of fresh, or maybe a few hours into the session. It's really commonly just known as burnout. Mental factors, fatigue is obviously huge. That kind of ties in with sleep. Just make sure you're not absolutely exhausted when you're queuing up on netplay. It's always going to be there, or it should always be there. Free Melee, fuck Nintendo. Interpersonal issues, obviously, if you've just had a 4-hour fight with your partner, or if your parents are being terrible people, you probably shouldn't sit down on the sticks. Again, this is a tricky one because people do use this game as a coping mechanism, and people, again, sort of use this as a way to distract from the fact that these things are going on. And I guess this is not a general sort of shaming. It's just something that you should probably strive to do. Some people deal with it better than others, but generally, at least personally, I've found the best sort of results from trying to just, pinpoint the problems that are going on outside of the game, so that when you sit down to do this thing that should be, fun for you, you're not stressing out, and you're not, bringing all of that external stress, which ultimately, whether you like it or not, and whether you can fully escape in Melee or not, it's still going to be there. Pride is the killer of most low, mid, high, every skill level of Melee player. I think there's a lot of people that will just hit a certain point, be it, getting onto a local PR, or maybe, winning a tournament, hitting enough combos that they can validate in their brain that they have these, this solid fundamental base, and that, nothing below them really matters anymore. They don't need to watch any more instructional videos. They don't need to really apply themselves too hard, because everything is, it's all just how well they're playing on the day, or, I can beat this guy. It's whoever's playing on the day. Completely forgetting that your opponent also subs to Mango and is a maniac who wants to get absurdly good just like you. I think this is a really, really important thing to remember when you're going into netplay, because you are playing a faceless opponent. You have no idea what they look like, you have no idea their intent, and you have just absolutely no idea who this person is. They could be a monk, they could be a nun, they could be none. But chances are, if they're playing Slippi online, there's a pretty sort of solid chance that they're trying their ass off as well. They're sitting down on the computer with the same intent. They want to beat you. Why is tilt something that we should avoid? I'd say in like 95% of cases, you're probably going to play worse if you're tilted. There's very few people, I could probably count on one hand the amount of people that can be viscerally angry at the game and play better because of it. And the big thing, again, for me personally, but I think that might apply to a lot of other people, is just the reflection period where you feel just awful. You're not only upset that, like, your performance was horrible and, you know, you looked like shit on stream. If you have a decent moral compass, you'll probably feel bad about the things that you said to your opponent as well. It's not going to feel great. And as we touched on before, it's just bad for your health. Tournaments are stressful, competing is stressful, putting your all into something and maybe not getting the results that you want is really stressful. You don't want to sort of encourage and reinforce getting angry, because it trickles into everything. You know, you don't want to be the kind of person that under pressure, your first response is to start yelling. You don't necessarily need, it's not a trait that you need to strive for. I think having that drive is pretty separate from how you deal, like, in terms of face-to-face value, how you deal with anger and how you deal with pressure. How do we stop tilt? Alright, core concepts. So we've heard a lot about A and B game. It's mentioned a lot when talking about, you know, maybe like Zane or Manga, saying that, like, oh, Zane won this tournament, he was playing his B game and he's just, you know, grinded out his B game so much that it's really good. I firmly believe that that sort of mindset is very real, and I especially believe it applies to mental game, because generally, like, good mental health is not, it's not a constant. You're never going to be, you know, perfect every day. You're not going to wake up and get out of bed and, like, chug your water every day and get your fruit every day. You're not going to, like, the sun's not going to be shining every day. You're not going to go to work and everyone's going to be a sweetheart to you and be like, oh, you sent me a wonderful email yesterday. It's not going to happen. Just sort of touching back on the earlier exertion, it's actually a concept called decision fatigue. And again, I'm going to plug Core here because there's a video covering that. It's a very real thing. To take some of the information from that video, like, most notably, a lot of, you'll notice it's sort of like Walmart's or like your supermarkets, a lot of the impulse buys, as they're called, are towards the end of your shop. You know, they're right by the place where you're doing the sale. And it's because, you know, you've made so many decisions, like, oh, do I buy Cap'n Crunch, or do I buy, you know, Wheat Thins? You know, do I buy the red Doritos, or do I buy the blue Doritos? You've made so many choices that you start making worse choices. And again, this applies to Melee a lot. You're making a lot of decisions sort of every few seconds. You know, are you gonna defensively put out an aerial, or are you gonna run at them? And as time goes on, you're going to start making worse decisions. Generally, it's sort of an up and down thing, because you're gonna hit a stride where you're playing really well, but then, you know, slowly it's gonna taper down toward the end, and you're gonna get, as we were discussing before, sort of burned out. So what can we do to prevent it? First and foremost, the easiest thing is to just take a break. I mean, it's I think that's been sort of drilled into us from childhood, that, like, if you're not having fun with something, to, you know, do something else or take a break from it. I'm not having fun doing this task that I'm sort of willingly subjecting myself to. I should probably not be doing it right now. Change environments is really helpful. It's a lot more applicable, I think, in, like, in-person tournament era, but even then, with net play, a pretty big thing is you just, you know, go outside, go smell the roses, go look at the Ford Flex down the road, maybe the Kia Soul. Go pet your neighbor's dog. Go pet your dog. Refuel your body. Eat a banana. Get some potassium, you know, get your vitamins. I don't think we need to touch on this much further. Your body is dependent on fuel. You are a car. You are a car. You are a car. Realize that you're probably not as good as you think you are. This journey that you're on is really long, very arduous, and is going to require a lot of sort of relearning from the ground up. You know, getting an idea in your head, seeing a counterplay and going, okay, I need to change this up. And on a more sort of macro scale, just remembering that this game is sort of dynamic. Everyone else is trying very, very hard. Most of the people that are playing are pretty devoted. And so, you know, just because you've been playing 2 hours a day doesn't mean other people in your scene haven't been playing 4 hours a day. And applying relaxation techniques, this is like, you know, CBT 101. They talk about, you know, like diaphragmatic breathing, stuff like that. It works. It's just good, man. A couple closing notes here. We touched on this before, but being a skilled, passionate player and being a nice person are not mutually exclusive. You don't have to be a dick to be really good. Being cognizant of your actions and just treating the people around you with respect, it's a dopamine rush. You get a reward from that. And ultimately, it just reinforces better behavior. The sticks are a constant. The sticks will always be there. If you went 0-2-1 tournament, there's nothing in the world except a reasonable skill curve stopping you from winning the next one. And the last thing, sort of have fun, be healthy. Shit talk with your friends if you want, but just sort of try and cultivate a better attitude in our scene. Try and cultivate a better attitude online. Ultimately, it means you're just going to get longer matches, you're going to get better sessions with people, and you're going to make more friends. Obviously, thanks for watching. I have a Twitter. It'll be in the description. Subscribe if you want. I stream on Twitch. Twitch.tv/smozero. That will also be in the description. I stream Slay the Spire. I'm on a 43 loss streak, and we're climbing. Let's get that number to 100. Have a good day, and I'll see you guys.